Hello and welcome back. This is MC1 Gamer. A little bit of a different video today. I have a bunch of battle reports that I haven't yet cut and edited, so they're coming. I have a couple of good ones with versus Stormcast Eternals. Not my favorite look. I know some people, it's controversial. A lot of the 40k people probably love those guys because they look like Terminators, basically. But after playing them, I gained a newfound respect for them. I had a couple of games with them, and they certainly prove interesting. They're really I wasn't really impressed with play testing them when I first tested out the game, and against the I guess the Blood Gore Chaos guys, the Khorne guys, and they just seemed very bland to me. But I played them with certain objectives in mind, as well as just in some smaller games. And they're pretty sturdy. They have some decent armor. They've got some decent. Almost all of them, I think, have multiple wounds. Their characters, their heroes, are pretty tough. I don't know what else is coming down the pipe, except for there's some pictures of archers. I think Judicators they're called, which I don't like, and they're kind of goofy in the fantasy setting. You know, big armored, technologically looking guys and with bows. And then they have these crossbowmen that look like they might as well just have tubes and wires and diodes and flashing lights and stuff, because they just look like they should just be guns. They should just be bolters or whatever. So okay, that's a little negative. I'm sorry, but I don't really like the Sigmarines, but they were it was fun to play against them though. They do have versatility, and I'm going to talk about those games when I play them. But one of the things I found is that they're not very skewed in one way or another. They can stick in there with some good multi wounds with good hit and wound rolls against you with some decent rending. They have good shooting and mobility. There's a good spectrum, especially if you buy the base set, and I'm sure as you get some more of these newer sets, they're going to become that much more versatile. And again, I have a game that I played just recently. I'll talk about that game actually because I didn't take pictures, and the main reason is because I fielded an army that was completely gray, bare gray plastic, and so was my opponent. My opponent's just starting to paint up his Stormcast Eternals, his Sigmarines, and so most of it was gray also. So when our two armies were together, one side didn't even have any paint on it. I mean, he had two models on his side that he had airbrushed, and so it was fun. I wish that we had taped it. I wish that I recorded it. I wish that we both had our armies painted, because it was an excellent game. It was probably one of the best games I played with Age of Sigmar yet. And the main reason is because we used some new terrain that recently came out, the Realm Gate portals, which added a whole new dimension. And I was going to talk about my son's army, but I'm going to jump in and I'm going to talk about this first. Then I'll end up with my son's army. And the main thing I'm trying to illustrate is just some more depth and some more understanding for people that still don't know much of Age of Sigmar, or still have misinformation and still have misconceptions, or still have prejudices against the game because they're kind of butthurt about what's happened since 8th ended and there was no 9th, and this is not 9th. So let me just first say, Vince, you told me to button this up at the beginning. I will follow your suggestion. I know I ramble. To all of you guys who are watching, you probably know. Well, if anybody's new, you'll find out. So if you are not a fan of AoS, that's fine. But if you're here to get rude and be nasty or not be constructive, just click the X on the browser or back click or leave, because I'm not going to entertain any nonsense. But if you're here to have a debate, and have constructive conversations, if you're here to learn about AoS, and if you're here to look over rules and scenarios and stuff, or introduce your own thoughts and concepts, I'm happy to have the debate. So you're welcome, and I look forward to the discourse. If I don't get to everybody's comments, especially if it's well after these videos have initially been uploaded, I apologize. I try to respond to every one of them, and I'll certainly try to do so going forward. But if I don't, it's not because I'm ignoring you, I'm not paying attention, and of course there's my phone clicking off. I usually silence it, so let me go do that while I'm continuing. So I had this great game yesterday, and I'm going to explain exactly why I think it was one of the best games with AoS so far. So my opponent, again, he had a Stormcast Eternals. I think he had about 6 or 7 War Scrolls and a little over 60 wounds total. So I brought the army that my son has been building with me. My son wanted to get into Warhammer. I was more than happy to oblige. I thought AoS was a great way to introduce him. I played with him 8th edition over the past year or so, and really a small version of 8th edition Warhammer Fantasy, and that was way complicated for him. Now he's young; he's 9 years old, and I have to admit, that any of these games are going to be a bit much. I played X-Wing with him, and even though it's a very simple game with the maneuver turn templates. It's still the concept was a little bit hard to grasp. He started picking it up, but I didn't buy the game to play with him 2, 3, 4 years from now, and that's the same reason why I stopped trying to play, even though he wanted to the 8th edition of Warhammer. I wanted to play. If I'm going to get him into a game, I'll play a game with him right now, and I certainly would like to explore the hobby with him where he can learn how to paint if he is so inclined. And he was interested in building, some tanks and ships and battleships. So I got a couple of those things, and I worked on those little projects like any dad would with his son. If that's the kind of hobby you're into and your kids are into. And he's interested in this stuff. So now it looks like the Age of Sigmar is simple enough as a starter introduction thing to a young person or a new person, that it's easy to get into and easy to understand and easy to that barrier of entry is certainly lower than it ever has been. So and this has been illustrated mainly first by Reef Beastman. Hope you're back soon with some more videos, Reef. But also I pointed this out a couple of times. One of the great benefits of Age of Sigmar is that you can play what you want, and I know there's a crazy effort to do points, to make point structures. I'm against it completely. I know that there's some org chart stuff that's a little too restrictive. I'm against that too. I'm for org charts. I'm for having pools of wounds. Aiming for 80 to 100 wounds. I don't really like the 25 maximum wounds I'm seeing, or 24 maximum wounds I'm seeing. I like that would be 30. I wouldn't mind seeing a situation, for instance, where you could take, we're both going to play anywhere from 8 to 12 War Scrolls, 80 to 100 total wounds today. That gives a range of options that limits the out of control crazy. But you also could have a situation where you could say, all right, any War Scroll can be up to 20 wounds, let's say. But if you want to have more than that, let's say you want to gain the benefits of a 30 person warband. War Scroll, and I got Warband on the head in mind because this week is a new Wardheim campaign. I'll be talking about that soon too. But if you wanted to take, say, additional guys beyond that, you would have to eat up one of your War Scroll slots, one of your War Scroll options. And I like that kind of stuff because it still allows for some freedom, a little bit more freeform in terms of deploying your troops and selections that you could bring. If you really want to kind of put a little bit of a ceiling on some of this stuff, let's not make it too restrictive. I don't like seeing 0 to 2 monsters because I think that there's some merit to actually having lots of monsters on the board. I'm not talking about 10 dragons or 10 bloodthirsters, guys. I'm talking about a herd of giants, a bunch of thunder tusks and Stonehorns and Giants, which is the kind of army that my son decided to pick out, and that's where I'm getting with my point. But if you want to have a flight of dragons, because there's a War Scroll in the High Elves books that's for a flight of dragons, you should be able to do that. I think that if you want to have a general guideline that limits it to 2 monsters, but if you take a War Scroll with a formation that it supersedes that, I'm good with that too. I love the War Scrolls, and I think we should look at the War Scrolls as a measure of the kind of army selection that we should try to adhere to if we want to rein that in. So without going and preaching any further on that point, Reef made this comment, and this really was indicative of how my son's army was being built. And it was that a kid could walk into a store and say, Daddy, I like that model, and it could be a dragon. You can't make a model. You can't make an army out of that in 8th. You can. You could just plop a dragon down. That's your army, and that's just one unit that you're putting down in Age of Sigmar. Or walk around and go say, I want that guy riding that whatever, and I want this dude with the big sword, and just pick what you want to play, and you have a spectrum of options because of the factions, order, destruction, death, whatever. So if there's themes or there are carryovers with similar armies, you really have you could pick 3 things. Whatever they are, that's your army. So my son went through all the the catalog of all the different armies as they exist now. Thankfully, he did not pick Sigmarines because I really didn't want to. I didn't really want to pick up the starter box. I'll be honest, and I'm resisting the urge to do it because there's some good, really cool scenarios that allow you, even if you're not playing the Stormcast Eternals, where you can gate in Stormcast Eternals on the board, so it's nice to have them in a sidebar. So I'm resisting the urge to do that, just to have it as an option. It's a nice option. But if you have the starter set, look that stuff up in the new scenario book. So he picked out ogres, and I was like, great, let's encourage that. I thought he might pick dwarves or elves because he's familiar with that from Lord of the Rings and other fantasy things that he's been exposed to. And I know that he didn't have to do knights because I have Bretonnian themed models. He didn't have to do undead because I have a wealth of undead. So I told him I discouraged him from those things because I've already got that covered. I don't have to buy more of that stuff. But I want to build something with him, paint it, do a project with him, and he picked out a bunch of ogres. So it was great. Low model count, big models, easy to paint. A lot of flesh tones, a lot of leather stuff, wood. And easy to put together. Show him, I'm not going to show him these high detail, painting techniques. Not that I have any high detail. I'm a good painter. I'm not a great painter by any means, and I'm learning all the time. So, but I can go and I can show him. Let's just use this flesh color for all the skin. Use this for all the leather. Use this for all the wood. And I'm helping him build the stuff. I build a lot of the little pieces into larger pieces. Like there's 2 sections of an arm. I put that together, and then he puts the arm on. Something like that. And I'll glue something, and he'll combine it, or vice versa. He's involved in the process every step of the way. And then I'll button some of the stuff up. And when it comes to the painting, I'll do some of the highlight stuff after he's done. It's a nice project for us. So we built a bunch of things. I know I've jumped off from the bat rep that I wanted to talk about that I didn't have pictures of, but I want to illustrate why I brought these guys to his game. So this is the first thing that he decided that he wanted to buy, and it was the second thing that I actually picked up because I went and I picked up a box of the second thing that he was mostly interested in, which was his Thunder Tusk. Now I'll go over this. First of all, I bought one of these. He said he wanted one. I said, his name is Ethan. I said, Ethan, you can have 2. So I bought some bits. In these boxes, as every one of you probably know, you have extra pieces that you could potentially make multiple versions of a model. But if you can get the bits for at much cheaper, if you can find them on some of the bit sites, which a lot of these pieces are starting to run out because either people are blowing them out, their inventory, they're not able to order more stuff because some of these models are not in stock anymore. Or people are just not offering them as much because maybe the demand has gone down a little. Get them while you can. So I bought extra bits, and now he's got 2. And we modeled these up. I asked him, which heads you want? I give him all the options. Which weapons on his arms? What kind of stuff on the sides? We went through all the different options, and then we put this together. And then we built them. I mounted them. I even put magnets and metal plates on the bottom because some of my trays that have the magnetic sheet, and then I have metal movement trays that I can use sometimes, so a little bit extra magnet. And I'm going to I'm going to get another thick, deep, tray, tall tray for his stuff, similar to the trays that I have, and then they can stack up on mine, and they'll be labeled for Ethan. And so he's got those 2 giants. He could just put a herd of giants in. There's a picture referring to a herd of giants in the new scenario book. I highly encourage anybody who's playing Age of Sigmar to pick this book up. It will change how you play, and I'll go and the new terrain, which, by the way, is starting to sell out big time. So get the terrain if you haven't gotten it. So we made one of these. We got another box of them. I've got 2 boxes of Mornfang that haven't yet been cracked open. So he's going to have a Stonehorn. I'm debating about buying bits for another one of these. It won't cost a lot. I have all I need is the body. I have all of the other options. And I probably can get it for half the cost of the box. So he'll have 2 Thunder Tusks, which is obscene, and a Stonehorn, 2 giants, and I probably need to get him a butcher, but we used one of these guys from his bulls as a butcher. Now people have already told me, oh, you should have gotten the Iron Guts. He's picking this stuff, guys. I'm kind of steering him and encouraging him, but he's the one who's picking it. So he's not picking this stuff to try and build an army based off of, anything more than what's aesthetically cool. Hey, Mastodon, giant with a big club. That's his motivation. So as a young kid, that's he wants to see these monsters, dragons. He wants dragons. So I don't know. I'll have to see. I'm not going to go start a high elf army for dragons just yet. But I am tempted with the treekin for the wood elves. Just a treekin army, which is also highlighted in the new book. So we made up some of these guys, and again, I've gotten some round bases for the new stuff and a square base. I'm actually, just to go off on another tangent, I'm actually changing this base. I haven't finished it yet, mainly because measuring from the base is starting to take on as opposed to measure from the model. Not everywhere. It's one of those things that's it's a complicated scenario, but in order to appease both sides, depending on who I'm playing with, I want to have an appropriate base if we do measure from the base. And this base, I think, would be too cheesy. This is like a Terrorgeist base that normally this thing comes with. I think it's probably 2 or 3 times this size. But you don't need the base in the regular rules. But if you play by measure from the base, I don't want this to be the measure from the base, because this is almost like basing for advantage, and I don't like that. I'm really against that. I'm really not liking measure from the model. But measuring from the base just makes more sense. And Andy2D6 has put out a great video about that. I had a video talking about some of the complications and questions about measuring to and from the base. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to compromise. I think that it makes logical sense that your base should, if you're sticking with the way the rules are, it doesn't really matter what your base looks like. But with the option of being able to say, okay, why don't we use the bases where we measure from that, and let's tone down some of the manipulation and advantages that you may have in that, and some of the crazy, weird things that come from that idea. Certainly, one of the things being stacking people's bases on top of each other or on top of yours. I don't want to go there again. I'll fucking lose my gasket. I'll pop a vein or something. I really can't stand that concept. It is not in the rules. It just doesn't say you can't do that. I don't know where that took traction. I think some moronic demo guy probably started doing it on a couple of videos, and it just started going viral. I don't know how that. Oh God, stacking your models on top of mine or yours on top of yours is just it's ridiculous. So, but in order not to have the basing for advantage thing, I figured the compromise is to create a base that at least covers the main footprint of the model. So this one's too short, in my opinion. I think this is too much basing for advantage. If you did measure from the base with this reduces the amount of surface that area that enemies can then pile in to attack against you. I think it being this big is just obnoxious. I thought it was obnoxious beforehand. I don't think it's necessary. But I'm going to pull this one off. See, I have the metal plate so it sticks. And I'm going to extend the base all the way down here. It's probably going to be a little wider. I'm going to use one of those flat movement tray plastic sheets that I have from that GW sold going back. I got a deal on a couple of sets of those. I'm just going to cut them up. I might grind them down into oval edges or whatever, but I'm going to have it go all the way up to here. So it covers, and it's going to be a little wider, and it covers the footprint of the model and then some. And I can get decorative with my son. I already talked about what he wants on there. He'd like to see a trampled guy. He's got his dad's sick mind, whatever. But I'm going to put one, a trampled guy on one, and then I don't think I have it, but I think it's a carcass, a skeletal carcass of some creature on the other. And help with the leg that's kind of lifted up so that it doesn't lean or whatever. And it'll if I do go and start using measure from the base, or other people that I speak to measure, want to measure, the people I play with want to measure from the base, then I'll have something that at least is not silly and doesn't look like somebody's changed it to advantage. The only problem I have with moving to measure from the base is that some people are going to have adjusted their bases where it looks like they're modeling for advantage, or they may have massive bases that puts them at a disadvantage in comparison to from square and rectangular bases to circle. Honestly, in a game like this that's not really meant to be competitive, it does not matter. It really doesn't matter. Fractions of an inch don't matter. I know there's people that make comments on my videos who said, well, over the course of the game, it starts adding up. Like the whole thing with the, pivot? Do you measure for turning the face of of a model if there's all things being equal, and for movement and whatever? I get some of the points of view. There's merit to some of those comments. But this is not a big game for competition. And if it ever becomes a game for competition, then those types of things might have to be considered and might have to be addressed, or might have to be overlooked. Because this is not life and death. And people are already in a conundrum about whether or not they're going to rebase. But I'm rebasing only things that are in the process of being built, that haven't been completed, haven't even been base coated. For my son's stuff, I wanted to have the metal stuff so that I can put it on the tray. I even have a magnet in there, so if it goes on a movement tray, and it's a small base. This is not the big 40 mil. This is just I guess for a standard guy. But when I first put that up there, I wanted to have a small footprint, only because the square bases put you at literally the minimum. Oh, look at that. That works. Put you at the little minimum distance of where you need it to be for unit cohesion. I see some people with ogres, for instance, at 40 mil square, and they're like, they're like that, and they're outside that inch range because they think it's an inch from base to base. It's an inch from model to model. If you go with measure from the base, I guess that changes, but then that really extends the distance for unit cohesion. Inch to inch, at least from the model, makes sense more to me. And being that the 40. I didn't want to put these on big 40 rounds because I didn't figure I need to, and then I had these washers. I might, if it comes down to it, the nice thing that I can do with this stuff is I can take a metal plate or a metal round washer, a fender's washer, plop that on top of it, and it's legal. So these are things that I'm looking to do to give me options, to have options for myself. Not necessarily for my son, because I don't think he's going to be encountering that kind of stuff. If he gets older and that becomes an issue, then I'll work with him and change some of his stuff. But the fact that I'm magnetizing this stuff means I can create it. I can just take another piece, put it down, and it's legal. It doesn't matter. So if that changes with these that are a little bit too small, I'll do that. And I'm willing to do that, and I think that everybody else should, because we don't know where everything is going to go over the course of time. And he's using this as a butcher. That's my suggestion, so I have to buy him another butcher. If I get him a butcher, that'll be a different story. But I think he's done with his army. He's got 2 units of Mornfang. He's got 2 giants, a Thunder Tusk, a Stone Horn. He might get another Thunder Tusk. If I can get like $20 for the bits for another Thunder Tusk. It's a whole new kit. I got all the bits. I can make a third of these giant guys. My point is, though, is getting back to it, is he can field whatever he wants, and it's a small model count army. It's not hard to paint up, and we'll have it ready to go, probably within the next few weeks. I play tested it yesterday. I had a phenomenal game. I actually played a game with my son, which I'm going to make a bat rep of. So, if I find out anybody who downvotes that, I don't care if you downvote me, man. You don't downvote my son. Which I know somebody's going to do now that they mentioned it, which I probably shouldn't have bothered. So in any case, the game yesterday, I play tested my son's ogre army against my buddy Marvin. And Marvin is one of the guys in the local area who's wholeheartedly moved over to AoS. And he plays a lot of games like Infinity, and he's played 40K, and so he's used to these types of games. But he was also into fantasy. I played him a bunch of fantasy games. I have a couple of bat reps with him. He has a really nicely painted, an airbrushed Dark Elf army, which he hasn't. I don't know if he's tried yet. I think he might have, but not with me yet. With Age of Sigmar. So, but he's doing the Stormcast Eternals. The only reason why this is not up on the air is because my son's army isn't painted yet, and I didn't want it to be all gray. At least if my models are somewhat painted, even if there's a few things that are just primed, and as long as the rest of my army is painted, there's some semblance of paint. It doesn't look great when nobody's got anything painted. I prefer that. I see some of these nice battle reports out there, and there's just like an entire wave of. I saw one which is a nice battle report, but there must have been like 30 Bretonian knights, all gray. That was dominated the entire screen, and it just was hard to watch just for that. And nothing against the guy who does that battle report. I forget, it escapes me, and I apologize. But it was a good battle report and a good illustration of a game. But to see a mass of cavalry, but not a lick of paint on it, not even primed. Yeah, I don't want to see that. So I don't want to do that to anybody else really either. So the one with my son, I'm going to put up because it's really to illustrate, because it's a really small game and a really quick game, just to illustrate playing with a kid, playing a game with a young child who's old enough to start grasping some of these rules. Maybe not the depth of the rules, but at least the beginner stuff of the rules. All right, so getting back to the game that I had with Marvin, he brought his Eternals, so he's got, again, about a little bit over 60 wounds for the Stormcast Eternals, and I brought the 2 Giants, the Thunder Tusk, and from the 6 Bulls, I took 1 bull, made him the Butcher, so he was a caster, and I had the 5 other bulls. So I had, I think, a little over 60 wounds myself. So we were a little bit on par in terms of total wound count. We didn't need to be, but I knew that was the limit of his army, and I wasn't going to go and stack the deck with that much more to try and get some artificial benefit. But I had 9 models, so I had sudden death. So we put down the board, and we had a building, maybe 3 hills, a forest, really well spaced out. But he had just gotten the Realm Gate set. So we had a couple dimensions to play a game. We were going to play one of the scenarios in the book, but I think we'll get to that. I think the reason why I didn't do it also with the scenario in the book is because I wanted to wait till we both had more stuff painted, and then we could do a nice looking game with that stuff. And if I come back to him with my undead, I'll use more stuff that's painted, so it's a little bit more aesthetically pleasing to watch. And then maybe we'll do some scenarios. He might actually be pulling out his Dark Elves for a game also, and we'll try to pull out some scenarios from the new book. I love the new book. Just so you know, I love the new book. So, and just again, to illustrate another point that I forgot, I kind of left, was in the book it even shows that there are some pictures of just herds of giants. As an army, there's like 4 giants or 3 giants. You should be able to do that if you want, guys. You should be able to do that. I went and I picked that. I had 9 models, so I had the sudden death option. So we had the Realm Gates on the table, and the Realm Gates have some interesting rules. For the one thing, if you begin your movement phase within range of the Realm Gate, I think it's like 3 inches, you can move a unit through the Realm Gate. That counts as their move. You have to roll. On a roll of 1, a model is slain. You roll for each model in the unit. It's very devastating for high wound count models. The other thing is that if you have a wizard within range, and I hope I'm remembering this correctly, you can re-roll that 1. But if you roll another 1, it's then that guy is slain. So if you have large units that you go through, you have a good chance of making more survive if you have a wizard within range to help with the Realm Gate management. But there's no guarantee that you're not going to lose some models. It's a better situation if it's a smaller unit with less rolls that you have to make, because you're going to lose some. You're probably going to lose some. Either way, it's a risk. So we had 2 Realm Gates on the different quadrants of the table opposite each other. And that just ended up a whole new dimension. So one of the things you can do is you can teleport to the other Realm Gate, or you can teleport to a table edge. So that really helped in terms of the thought process of now we have these 2 armies, and we don't know where we're going to be on the table. It changes all the movement factor. It changes a lot of the concepts of defense and zones, and where you're going to, if you get characters that could be, he has a character that stands behind his main guy and just, heals him up. And either way, it's a whole new dimension in terms of how you're navigating the board. Then, because I had sudden death, I didn't want to be cheesy and pick something, close like the Realm Gate, which might have been an interesting thing as well, but I wanted to pick something that was going to be more difficult. So we had the Realm Gates on either of the corners, but further in, maybe about 6 or 8 inches into the board. And on one of the opposite corner on his side of the table, I picked a hill terrain that was very long distance to get to. I'd have to get to either of the Realm Gates, none of which were really close to me. And if I wanted to, and try to port through to get to that hill or go right for the hill, which gave a lot of maneuverability options. And my opponent had to try and counter that, because now I have sudden death to win the game. And apart from trying to kill each other, we have these objectives. Not an objective from the book, just something we had based off of the terrain. And obviously, the terrain also has all their mystical abilities. And the portals, every turn, at the beginning of every battle turn, you roll 2 dice, and that's whatever the effect is on that random chart, it also has on the Realm Gate. So there's a lot of things that can change and alter over the course of a game. with those realm gates. I haven't played with the Ophidium Archway yet, but I will. And this is what I'm liking about the new terrain. It's very interesting. And even all the old terrain pieces have a war scroll that give you the abilities, the ancient ruins, the Garden of Moor, all the towers and chapels, and all that stuff. Those are great items. There's no chart for it. I think that there's some thought process that you might take that as one of your war scroll options, which is why I think we should have a larger array of war scrolls, but maybe a cap of some kind in terms of total, because there's no points for that stuff, but it gives you an option, especially if you're like a wood elf and you want an extra wood, or if you want to bring like a Garden of Moor for your undead or something. You need to eat up a war scroll slot. All right, it's like taking another unit or not taking a unit. I think that's probably one way to do it. Maybe that's one of the ways that they're suggesting it, because in the new scenario book, the new Treekin, the Sylvaneth, have 2 guaranteed wood, Citadel Woods, or whatever forest you decide to bring, but they're 2 War Scroll slots as part of the formation, and that's pretty interesting to me. In any case, he brought his Stormcast Eternals, so he had all the new guys that just came out, the one with the little kind of pooch, but it's kind of a griffin dog, whatever. And so he had all the characters, he had all the options up to date. He didn't have the Judicars? No. The Bowmen, the Space Marine Bowmen. He didn't have those yet. So, and we had a great game, and the whole game was, I sent a giant out towards one of the realm gates, and he had to move his general and some support guys to go after him, which spread his troops out. I came right up thrusted up the middle on the left side with the rest of my my herd, and he was blocking meat, with my movement, with the way the rules are, from being able to blast past him to get to the realm gates. And we just had this great game where there was that tension. There was a good chance that I broke my butcher through and finally was able to get to the realm gate to try to win the game in the final turn. It was actually in turn 6. We decided just to play 6 turns. And I just needed to get this guy there after turn 4. And he was able to blast that guy out, with some throwing hammers or lightning or something or other, and it was carnage, but it wasn't just me at the middle of the scrum like people still keep talking about. We were spread out over the board, and it was about 65 wounds. It's like 7 war scrolls, and just a interesting piece of terrain that's new to the game. With some new mechanics, and not even one of the scenarios in the book. But the idea that there was an objective in mind vastly changed the game, and it was entertaining, and it was an ogre loss, but it was an ogre loss in the last turn of the game, which is, if you're going to lose, that's the best way to lose, honestly, because it's the most fun. That was phenomenal. I mean, I could go into more detail. You guys don't need it. We all hear our war stories, our battle stories, but I just wanted to express that the depth of the ability to retreat, the creating zones to prevent further movement because having to stop within 3 inches of models, with various formations, the piling in that diverts the units from certain directions, breaking up some of the cohesion with some units. Getting outside of a general's range, I had moved off my bulls to one side, pulling away his units from the sphere. It was a 24-inch range of his general to be able to make them unbreakable, which had a nice impact on that side of the board. And it was just much more than what we've seen on most battle reports. Now, some of the newer battle reports are getting much better. Hopefully mine will as well. I still have more to cut and edit that probably don't have as much to mention as some of my more recent games. But I want to start taping some more that are more interesting. Once I finish getting my son's army up to snuff, I'll either fill that or I'll go back to the projects that I have on my own army. And of course, I've also got Mordheim, and bolt action. So there's more stuff to come, but a lot more Age of Sigmar. So if I love seeing other people's experiences. I really like the vibe I'm getting from a lot of other players, and other people that have channels, whether they're big or small. I'm doing a lot more of unlockings. I'm trying to schedule them. I'm working around the calendar with a lot of other people that have their own channels that I communicate with, and we support each other on each other's channels. I'm entertained by certainly their content, so I go and I'll go and watch their stuff, and apparently they somehow are entertained by mine, so they come in and watch me. But I've invited a bunch of people to do some more army book PDF unlocking to go over war scrolls. So look out for those. I know I've only done the Skaven one, but there's a bunch left. I know a lot of people have been asking about vampire accounts. A lot of people have been asking about lizardmen. I've got one person who's lined up to do orcs and goblins. I'm still waiting to hear back on a couple other ones. I've got Tomb Kings. Vince is going to be doing that. John Tolby is going to be doing the VC vampire counts with me. Ant still says he's going to do the Bretonians with me. I'm hoping that he will with a positive eye. But look, he's not down the game necessarily. He just doesn't look at it as the game that it's certainly not the top of the list of what he would play if he has choices. It's not that he won't play the game because he won't have fun with it. It's just not the game that he used to play, and it doesn't fulfill that need, that interest that he has enough to make it a mainstay game. And that's his. Look, I'm sorry, it's unfortunate, but I'm looking forward to getting some games in with Ant and looking forward to analyzing the Bretonians with him at some point. And if he comes back, it'll be great. I'd love to see some battle reports from his point of view. After this game has been unlocked a little more. So there's a lot more stuff to come. William Page. Oh yeah, he's going to be doing Dark Elves with me. I just got to schedule with him the time, and there's several other people I'm still waiting to hear back from. So again, the invitation is open if you're interested in doing an unlocking with me. If you have a channel and that you produce content already, that you want to jump in. I'm happy to entertain that concept. So certainly reach out to me. Send me a message through YouTube, and we'll exchange emails in private and try to coordinate something. So that a lot of those slots are filling up, and then I'm going to be doing some videos where I'm going to be talking about specific tactics, deployment, shooting, countering shooting. There's a lot of that. I'm going to be getting to all that. There's only so much that I can put out, even though I've been putting out a lot of AoS content of late, but I'm going to be getting to all that. So just, if you have interests, please feel free to express those interests. If there's things that you've discovered or found or questions that you have, feel free to post them. And beyond that, have a great day, everybody.